Hello, and welcome to Week 4 of the Introduction 2020 Interest Session Series. We've designed these programs to allow you to see the tremendous number of staff and departmental resources available to support your success at the University of Oregon. For today's interest sessions, we're featuring academic advising in the Tutoring and Academic Engagement Center, the Center for Multicultural Academic Excellence, non-traditional student resources, the Clark Honors College, and additional information about financial aid and scholarships. As a reminder to you students watching, be sure that you complete your reflection on this program after we're done by visiting community.uoregon.edu. We want you to stay on track during introduction. Additionally, the last 15 minutes of this session will be dedicated to answering your questions live on camera. If you're watching in Zoom, please use the Q&A feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen to ask your presenter your questions. There's also staff answering questions within Zoom and on Facebook. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce you to Paige Jackson from the Office of Academic Advising and Grant Schoonover, who works in both the Pathway Oregon program and the Tutoring and Academic Engagement Center. Welcome to both of you, Paige and Grant.
Hello, Cora, and hello, everybody else. I'm Grant Schoonover, the Director of the Tutoring and Academic Engagement Center, and I'm very excited to be here.
And I'm Paige Jackson. Hi, everyone. I'm an Assistant Director in the Office of Academic Advising here at U of O. And we're just going to kind of dive right in to talk about academics at U of O, which is sort of hopefully at the top of everyone's mind right now. And it sort of occurred to us as we were designing this presentation that it's going to kind of go through this natural flow of what new students are experiencing when they're going through their advising for introduction. So more specifically, I'll start by talking through an overview of the University of Oregon degree requirements, what types of classes and requirements you'll meet on your way to graduation. This is going to look really familiar to those of you who have already completed the online advising prep module or are soon to complete that, which will be followed by your individual advising session. So we're going to talk a little bit, after we cover degree requirements, talk a little bit more about what advising looks like at U of O and what you can kind of expect from that relationship with your advisor and how to connect with them over your course of time at U of O. And then I'm going to turn it over to Grant to talk more about class resources, learning support, and this is going to go directly hand in hand with the last part of your introduction advising experience, which is actually choosing and registering for your fall classes. So very exciting stuff. We're excited to have you here today, and we're going to jump right into talking about the U of O degree. So this pie chart here that you see is going to be ubiquitous throughout this presentation. It's meant as a visual representation, a very simplified one, albeit, of your University of Oregon degree. So we have sort of 180 total credits required for most University of Oregon degrees. There are a few notable exceptions to that, including architecture, probably most notably, who have quite a bit more, but they're 5-year programs, so that's to be expected. For most students though, 180 credits is kind of your magic number. And if you look at this pie chart, the way it's kind of broken out, again, in a very simplistic way, is that your major, which is often what you're thinking about when you're thinking about studying academics, is going to be about maybe a third of your degree. Your core education requirements, which we're going to spend quite a bit of time digging into today, another third of your degree, very important. And that leaves electives, which will make up the final portion of your degree. So to kind of give you a sense of how this looks over 4 years, most students take around 15 credits a term. That's an average course load, which means about 45 credits a year, which then translates to 4 years to a degree. So you want to kind of hit that 45 credits per year or 15 credits per term on average to maintain that 4-year pace. And that's about 4 classes a term, to give you a sense. So again, with this pie chart, you're going to be seeing a lot of, we're going to return to it a lot. Core education is the first thing we're going to dig into here. So core education is really about the breadth of study. This is sort of the area that kind of ensures that your education, you leave U of O with a very well-rounded study of subjects, skills, competencies in different areas, regardless of what you major in. So before we dig into what that core education is, we're going to talk a little about why we do it, why it's important. Your core education is really the backbone of a liberal arts education, which is really important. It's sort of, a colleague of mine likes to call it your intellectual Swiss Army knife, which I think resonates really well. There's a couple of statistics up here that I think speak to why the skills and competencies that you learn across a variety of subjects are really important when you graduate from a career perspective. So if you want to turn to these, 93% of employers agree that the capacity to think critically, communicate clearly, and solve complex problems is actually more important than your choice of major. And an additional 80% of employers agree that regardless of what major you choose, every college student should require broad knowledge in the liberal arts and sciences. So another way that I've heard this framed that I really liked from a career advising professional was the idea that college graduates are going to have, on average, I think the latest statistic is somewhere around 7 careers over their working lifetime. You're not going to have 7 degrees. So how do you get your 1 degree or your undergraduate degree and your graduate degree to work for a number of different careers? Through liberal arts is how I would answer that question. So I'm off my soapbox now about why liberal arts is important, and we're going to return to kind of like what it actually is at U of O, how that translates into kind of your day-to-day coursework, and what types of classes you might be expecting to take in the fall. So again, we sort of have this umbrella here of core education, but within that is going to be writing courses, second language courses, math and or computer information science courses, and we'll dig into that a little bit. Your areas of inquiry, which is really like an umbrella term within an umbrella term, and we'll dig into that as well, and your cultural literacy courses. And we're going to touch a little bit on each of these, starting with writing. So all students at U of O take writing. It's a really important skill to have. Writing 121 is the class that everyone starts with, and then students either take 122 or 123 to complete their 2-course requirement. A lot of students may have earned credit through AP or IB, A-levels, dual credit. A lot of students are bringing in credits for writing and other requirements we'll talk about today. If you're not sure what requirements you may or may not have met, that's what advisors are here to kind of help you with, especially in that first introduction advising session where we'll kind of go through your previous coursework, anything you're bringing in, your placement tests, and kind of give you a little bit of guidance around that. The second portion of sort of your degree requirements for core education is going to be second language or math courses. So with a few exceptions, because there are other degrees that we offer at U of O, the majority of degrees are going to be your Bachelor of Arts or your Bachelor's of Science. A BA degree requires 2 years of college level language, and your BS degrees here require 1 year of college level math and or computer information science courses. These 2 different types of degrees, just like you pick a major, students tend to pick a type of degree that feels right for them. It's sort of just different flavors that they offer. One's not better than the other, they just have different requirements involved in them. So if you go with a BA degree, keep in mind that your degree is going to require 2 years of language study. Regardless of which degree type you choose, you may also pick a major or be interested in a major that requires the study of language. And there's a few on this list, quite a few, that require language. So if you do a BA in classics, you're going to be studying language. If you do a BA in history or even a BS in history, you're going to be studying language because those requirements are baked into that major. And I don't know about anyone else's high school, but I know that mine tended to offer a couple of languages. At U of O, we have a ton, including American Sign Language, Swahili, Biblical Hebrew, things you might not have had the opportunity to take in high school, although maybe you did, I don't know. That would be great. But Swedish is offered here, Portuguese, and there's a lot of reasons why you might choose to study a new language, although you are also welcome if you want to study a second language to continue taking the language you've previously studied. And that would be a good sort of signal to maybe take a placement test to see if you test higher into that 2-year sequence. So it's worth noting, if you do a Bachelor's of Science degree in a major that does not have a language baked into the requirements, as I'm calling it, you don't have to take a language, but you're welcome to, and most U of O students find a reason why it might be helpful to have a language, and there's just a few mentioned here. Having fun, traveling, study abroad, advocating for a community, developing skills to be a better learner. There's a lot of different reasons why you might choose to study a language, even if it's not embedded in your degree requirements. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Bachelor's of Science now, kind of switch gears to the math side of things, which many prefer. If you do a BS degree, you're going to be completing 1 year of college level math or computer information science courses, or again, equivalent proficiency. So just like there are those majors that require the study of language, there are also majors that require the study of math, and this is most of them at U of O that are going to require the study of math. There are a few on this list that are going to be probably several years of math. I'm looking at physics, computer information science, and then there's others on this list that are going to require maybe just 1 term of math required for the major, and then you would make up those additional 2 terms of math with whatever math courses you choose to take if you go the BS route. Okay, to kind of center ourselves back within this core education umbrella, we've talked about writing, second language options, math and computer information science courses, and how those kind of interplay. The last part of your core education requirements are actually the largest in terms of credit requirements. Your areas of inquiry and your cultural literacy requirements for everyone except Clark Honors College students are going to make up the bulk of your core education requirements. And this is also the area where you have the most flexibility to study the things that you're really interested in. So you're going to be required to take classes in a number of different areas, including arts and letters or humanities type courses, social sciences, natural sciences. And again, this is really just meant to ensure that regardless of whatever major you choose, you're going to have a breadth of study and be exposed to a lot of different intellectual styles of inquiry. So very exciting stuff. The cultural literacy requirement specifically is a 2-course requirement. And there is a lot of overlap, I should say, between areas of inquiry and cultural literacy courses. Many satisfy both. But ultimately what this is meant to do is introduce students to the richness of human diversity, and also the opportunities but immense challenges that come along with living in a multicultural society, both at a US level, which is one of the course requirements, as well as a global perspectives, so more of a global level as well. All right, so that wraps up our core education third of this pie chart, and we're going to talk now about majors, which provide that depth of study. Your core education gives you the breadth, your major gives you the depth. So there are about 70 plus majors offered at U of O, and for the sake of not keeping you here for 8 hours, we're not going to talk about individual majors, but what I will say is that they range. So some majors are going to be 48 credits, some are going to be upwards of 120, 130 credits or more, and that's going to impact how your individual pie chart looks. So every student's pie chart is going to look a little bit different, and that's normal and should be that way. And then last but not least, this last third of your pie chart is your elective credits. So these are a really great place where you can either build in more depth. Some students will choose to pursue a minor, for example, or will use elective credits to engage in undergraduate research or an internship experience and ways to kind of really deepen their knowledge in their chosen field of study. Other students will use these in combination with depth of study to take things like PE and really like focus in on that mind-body connection, music classes, maybe you join the gospel choir and earn credit for it. A lot of different options there, and you kind of get to choose what you want it to look like for you. Alrighty, so flight paths. I gave just a broad overview of the degree requirements at U of O, and they're meant to provide a structure and a framework, but they're also built with a ton of flexibility within them, and that's where you kind of get to drill down and design your education and your curriculum that you're following in a way that really draws out and allows you to explore your interests and the issues that drive you. And that's sort of this central question embedded within this idea of flight paths. So at U of O, we have 6 different flight paths, and what they are thematic categories that kind of center and group interests, both career, academic, and allow you to kind of more intentionally explore a particular area. So perhaps you, for example, choose the Healthy Communities flight path. In that flight path, you could take a variety of subjects or learn about a variety of majors, but maybe it looks like learning about how living organisms interact or learning about how the mind processes like complex cultural issues. There's a lot of different directions you could take it within that flight path, but all of those majors and career opportunities grouped within it have that common thread of serving healthy communities. So one example, and just to say that even though I've just spent maybe 10 minutes presenting your degree as a checkbox, a list of boxes that you must check to graduate, there's actually quite a bit of flexibility to make it look like how you want to look and to really pursue and further your passions and interests and explore what those are. And to help you do that, we have advisors. So we just wrapped up talking about what the actual degree at U of O looks like. And so for this second portion, I'm going to talk a little bit just on how advising works, what it is, what you can kind of expect from your advising appointment, both your first advising appointment that you'll be having soon in the month of August, as well as any subsequent advising encounters. So as I've discussed, the degree looks a little bit different for every student, and it can be complex to navigate. And that's true whether you're exploring majors or if you are really settled on one specific major, you know exactly what you want to do. There's still just questions that crop up around degree requirements, and that's what advisors are here to help you kind of navigate. So I think specifically think about advisors' role as kind of in 4 parts. First part being helping you navigate the actual degree requirements at U of O, which, as I've gone over, a simplified version can be a little bit confusing and you have a lot of choice within it. The second thing that I think advisors are well positioned to be able to help you do is connect with resources along that sort of academic journey. And this presentation is focused on the academics, but advisors are actually really great at helping you connect with both co-curricular and personal support resources as well. In fact, I would say, especially as you're adjusting and transitioning to college, a lot of students encounter challenges and your advisors are a really good first stop. We're not by any means an expert in everything and we can't provide every single support for you, but we can at least get you pointed in the right direction. So kind of that wayfinding function, I think, is another important part of advising. The third thing that I think advisors are well positioned to do is help you integrate your academic choices. So this is going to start as early as your first advising appointment when your advisor looks at you and says, what are you interested in studying? What are you excited to take? And learning about your career, your life, and your academic goals, and then how you can choose majors and courses in pursuit of those goals and tie them together. And then lastly, I think another thing that advisors are really helpful with, we don't always think of these as skill sets you build, especially in college, but developing decision-making skills and planning skills and problem solving. There's a lot that goes into kind of mapping out those 4 years and what they look like to ensure that you get the most out of it. So helping develop those skills around planning things out, developing decision-making skills, carrying out those plans, and then like returning back when you encounter challenges so you can figure out how to navigate barriers. So that's what you can kind of expect from an advisor in a nutshell. Probably the most common question I get during introduction is, who is my advisor? And that's a great question because it's gonna, again, similar to your degree looking really unique for every student, your advising experience is gonna look unique as well. So to keep it really simple, your first term, you're gonna get outreach from and meet with an advisor from one of these schools or colleges or centers. So we have 7 schools and colleges at U of O. All schools and colleges have advisors embedded within them and they're experts in their areas, their programs, their majors. And then in addition to those schools and colleges, we also have some centralized advising offices and resources for support, and I've just listed a few here, including my own office, the Office of Academic Advising, the Center for Multicultural Academic Excellence, who I think we're hearing from later today, Pathway Oregon, Grant is part of that program, and then TRIO Student Support Services. So any one of these offices, you're in good hands, and no matter where you seek out advising for both your first session, during introduction, continuing on through your entire college journey, and the multiple offices that you may have touch points with, we're all excited to just kind of help you navigate your way here at U of O. So don't hesitate to reach out and we're excited to work with you. So we just finished talking about the degree, advising, and I'm going to turn it over to Grant now to talk a little bit more again about that third step of courses and what type of learning support you can expect to have here at U of O.
Thanks, Paige. So along with academic advising, the university offers a variety of academic support services to help you succeed in the classroom and ensure that you earn your UO degree. And for many students, their first term, they might find that they're struggling in a course for the first time, or maybe you just want to be a better student. We offer a lot of free academic support services that include tutoring, structured study groups, academic coaching, courses and workshops, and study skills to help you be a better student or to help you navigate a challenge or a struggle you might be having in a classroom. I work with the Tutoring and Academic Engagement Center, and we're located on the 4th floor of the Knight Library. And I work with a team of dedicated folks whose #1 priority is to help you succeed in the classroom. One thing that I want you to know and to leave with is just that if you have a question, you're having trouble in a course, and you've connected with the instructor, you've connected with other students in the class, and you still don't know where to go, the 4th floor of the Knight Library and the Tutoring and Academic Engagement Center is a great place to start. You can stop in and we can help you that way. You can also go to our website and learn more about our resources and services, and you can even give us a call. We'd be glad to hear from you. So in the Tutoring and Academic Engagement Center, one of our goals is to actually help you when you need that help. So we offer a variety of services. The big one is tutoring, and oftentimes, if you're in a class, you might find that you just have a quick question, or you're struggling with a particular assignment to get started, or maybe a course concept, and you just need help now. We offer drop-in services Sunday through Friday in math, writing, and language. You can just stop by and get connected to a tutor and get the help you need. You might also find that you're in a particularly challenging class, whether that's a math course, maybe biology or chemistry, writing, or even a language class, and you need help over the course of a full term. You can schedule either individual tutoring appointments. Those would be one-on-one and weekly that work in your schedule to provide additional course support. You can also work in a small group of fellow students who are in the same class and work with a tutor twice a week to get that support as well. We also offer writing support. We have a writing lab on the 4th floor of the library. That's both in person and it's also asynchronous. You can, if you're having trouble with an assignment, particularly if you don't know where to start or just want additional guidance on how to make it more effective, you can use OWL, which is our online writing lab. You can submit your writing sample and you'll get feedback within 24 hours from one of our tutors. Many first year students also are in some larger courses, and oftentimes these large classes particularly can be challenging for students. We know that, so we've provided a program called Class ENCORE, and it's a pretty simple concept. You can opt in if you'd like additional support outside of the class. You meet with a small group of students. You go over course concepts, talk about problems that you're working through in the class, and get additional support. If you happen to be in one of these classes fall term, look out weeks 1 and 2. Your instructor will make an announcement and let you know more about how you could sign up for this support. So some students might find that they actually don't need tutoring, but they would like to just be a better student, maybe more effective, more efficient. It's a good thing that we can't go back in time and look at sort of B footage of when I was an undergraduate, because I am one of the students who definitely didn't need tutoring, but could have used some support on how to use my time both in the classroom and outside of the classroom to be a much more effective and efficient student. I am a terrible procrastinator and also a terrible time manager. And we offer classes to help students either become better students or address a challenge that they are aware of. We do this through one-on-one coaching, so you could actually connect with our center and meet with somebody and talk through those pieces. But you could also take a credit course, and this fall we offer what we call is our tackling series. And when you meet with an advisor in the coming weeks, you could actually talk to the advisor about these classes. They're 3 weeks. You get 1 college credit that will go towards your degree, and they help you build skills in a particular area. For example, the Tackling Time course, as you might suspect, is a class that helps you evaluate your own time management skills or lack thereof, and offers some strategies about how to manage and use your time better. Oftentimes just finding congruence between what your interests and goals and values are and how to best use your time to achieve what you've set out to do here at the university. Lastly, what I'd like you to know is just that we're here to help. Not only the Tutoring and Academic Engagement Center and your advisors, but the university offers support throughout to offer you help inside the class, but also outside of the class. That happens through the math department in their math library. It happens in the College of Business through the Braddock Tutoring Center. The chemistry department has a super chemistry, which is a peer-led study skills session that offers upwards of 20 sessions each week just to get assistance outside of class in a chemistry course. The Center for Multicultural Academic Excellence also offers tutoring and one-on-one support, as well as the Amada Language Center, to mention just a few. One thing I'll end where I started, which is that the TAC, the Tutoring Academic Engagement Center, is on the 4th floor of the library, and we're a great place to start. Whether you find that you're having trouble in a class, or as I said, want to just be a better student, come see us, give us a call, look us up, and we'll help you find the next best step. So I'm going to turn it over to Cora, and I think we now have an opportunity to answer some live questions.
We do. So we do have some questions coming in. I've been following on my phone, and for you students who are watching in Zoom, we definitely want to make sure that we get to as many of your questions as we possibly can, and we have plenty of time. So keep those questions coming in. To start off with, Paige, I think this one is for you. Hannah wants to know, do you need to take the placement test before your academic advisor reaches out to you?
That's a really great question, and probably one of the questions we get most frequently in the weeks leading up to introduction. And I would say a lot of this is going to depend on what you want to study and when you want to study it, but typically it's better to always have your placement tests in, and that's true even if you're expecting credit. I know that there have been, if there is a delay in a credit coming in for a particular math class, for example, let's say you've earned college credit for college algebra math 111, that's great. And if that transcript is in and we've got it in place, everything's going to work out perfectly, but there is always the chance that it hasn't come through yet, in which case you might be delayed in registering for the next math class, or even like a chemistry course you might need for your major that has math as a prereq, and you can bypass all of that if you take the placement. So in general, I would say math placement, language placement, it's a really great thing to do. Just across the board. If you know for a fact you're majoring in a major that requires math, you're not interested in doing a Bachelor of Arts degree, you have no interest in continuing with language study, there might be an argument to be made for bypassing that, or vice versa. If you know you want to do a BA and in English and you don't want to take any math, it might not make sense to take the math placement. But especially if you're exploring your options and knowing that, I think a lot of students will change their interest will change or evolve over time, and so you may start out being like, I'm not taking language, and then winter term you're like, you know, I actually think learning Spanish might be kind of fun. So you never know, but to say be on the safe side, I would say take your placements. And if you have questions, you can always reach out to your individual advisor that you meet with, just to ensure that you've got everything in place.
Well, Paige, usually when I talk to a student who asks me this, often their interest is to avoid having to take yet another test. And I always counsel them that having the advisor having more information is always better than having less information, right? And yes, an AP score might come in, or a math transcript might come in, or something like that. But the information is always valuable to inform the conversation. Is that the way that you view that, or is there other ways that those test scores can be helpful to an academic advisor in prepping for that meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good point. And then I would also say that, particularly with our math placement, it's done through a platform called ALEX. And a lot of students, particularly, I imagine, in today's day and age, in a post-COVID world, knowing that there's a lot of disruption to classes, potentially for graduating high school seniors, it may have been a while since you've been in a math class. So even if you're expecting math credit, taking the placement allows you to kind of like exercise that part of your brain. And also they have built-in prep and learning modules.
Yes.
So I will actually often meet with students who are bringing in credit for pre-calculus, but they take the math placement and place a lot lower, and that is a really good, I think, metric for both the student and the advisor to talk about, what sort of support do we need to put in place to make sure that like you're fully capable of moving on in math, but we want to make sure you have support in place because maybe it's been a while. So I think it's also kind of a good temperature gauge of where a student is at and what types of support might be helpful for them moving forward to ensure their success.
Thank you. Okay, so oh gosh, so many questions. Fisher wants to know what aspects of introduction must be completed to ensure an academic advising appointment. In fact, I'm going to take this one. Fisher and others, we have sent the first round of names off to academic advising for students who will be in the first round of students to be invited to set up their appointment with academic advisors. As we mentioned during our opening session in all of our communications and on our website, those flock meetings are mandatory, and so is completion of the advising module, and those are our two benchmarks right now. We do still expect you to complete the requirements for the faculty perspectives and the interest sessions, but those aren't a measure to get to the academic advising appointment opportunity. Those 4 flock meetings that we've had thus far are part of our requirements, and we've presented some pretty important information in those. as has the advising module with the placement tests that are part of that. So we want to make sure that you've done that. And we know that there's a handful of students who have just one more little piece of that to complete, like you haven't done the advising module. We want you to do that, and we'll be sending names of students who have completed those requirements onto academic advising regularly so that they can get into the cycle of being able to be invited to make their appointment with an academic advisor. So please make sure that you have completed those. If you have missed a flock meeting, we want you to communicate with your orientation leader. We know that you have their text number, or you can email us to check in about makeup flock meetings so that we can get you back on track to stay on task to complete introduction. Neva wants to know, this could go to either of you because you're both academic advisors, but I'm going to pitch it to Paige. Where do credits for minors fit into the pie chart?
That's a really good question, Mina. And it doesn't have a simple answer. So I guess the simplified version is often if you're pursuing a minor, some students will pursue double minors in 2 different areas. Those typically are going to reduce the number of elective credits that you would need, as the easy way to think about it. However, it is worth noting, and you'll hear this term a lot, like double dipping credits. Like there's a fair amount of your intellectual breadth that you're going to be taking through your arts and letters and areas of inquiry and social sciences that, like, so let's say you're a bio major, but you're deeply interested in psychology. You can use a fair amount of your psychology courses for a psych minor towards parts of your areas of inquiry courses. And for example, like, there are other minors that might require math, which could overlap with your minor and your Bachelor's of Science math requirement. So it's not quite as clear cut, which again is why our pie chart is a really simplified way of looking at it. But typically it's easy answer electives, more challenging answer, it can be spread across the different parts of your degree, and you can even double dip between a minor and a major. So that's another reason why it's good to just kind of check in with your advisor regularly, make sure you've got a good grasp on kind of where those credits are coming from so you can plan for the future.
Thank you. Okay. Hannah wants to know, when are academic advisors supposed to reach out to us? This is another opportunity just to say that we are communicating with the advising team regularly and passing along names of students who've completed. Again, the first round of names has gone to them, and I suspect that you should be hearing from them early next week to begin to set up your advising appointment. So you want to make sure that you've set up that @uoregon.edu email address and make sure that you're checking that. And again, if you need help with any of that, that's where your orientation leader or our text line can be really useful. I will make sure that you have our email address and our text line at the end of this session, but make sure that you're staying on track. If you want to know what all is required, you can find that on our website as well at orientation.uoregon.edu. But we have begun that cycle of sending names to the academic advising team at this point, and we'll continue to do that on a regular basis. Madeline wants to know, and this is another one for you, Paige, if I am in the CHC, the Clark Honors College, do I need to complete the advising module to get my advisor, or does the CHC advising module replace that?
Really good question. So the Clark Honors College students have their own community site that has its own information. Everything I went over today, a lot of it overlaps with Clark Honors College requirements, particularly the structure of the degree, Bachelor's of Arts, Bachelor's of Science, degree types, cultural literacy requirements, but the core ed does look a little different for the Clark Honors College students. And the advising module within the Clark Honors College community site, as well as the knowledge check to ensure that you're really getting that material, is very specific to the Clark Honors College. So I would say absolutely do the advising module, but it's going to look a little bit different because it's catered specifically towards CHC or Clark Honors College students.
Thank you. And for you, Madeline, the Clark Honors College will be doing a live session here in a bit, and it will be presented by their first year advisor. And some of these questions, they'll be talking a little bit about some of the unique academic opportunities that may be able to fit into your schedule as part of the Clark Honors College. So you'll want to make sure that you listen carefully to that to be prepared for your academic advising appointment. EJ wants to know, and this one is for you, Grant. EJ wants to know, how will tutoring work for a student who will not be on campus this fall, just taking classes online from home?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we got quite a bit of practice this spring figuring out the best way to offer tutoring. Typically, we do offer it in person. I think that makes a lot of sense, and if you've ever received support from somebody, it often helps to be in the same place. The nice thing, though, is that as a university student, you'll have access, if you needed to take the tutoring remote, to Zoom or Microsoft Teams, which both allows one-on-one and group support in a variety of different formats. For example, if you wanted to drop in tutoring for math, you'll actually be able to either schedule an appointment through our Student Navigate platform, or you'll be able to use a Zoom link on our website to drop in on a Zoom group and get connected to a one-on-one tutoring. The nice piece is you can share your screen with the tutor, show them what you're working on, the tutor can share their screen, and even use a shared whiteboard to work through, say, a math problem. If you're in a class that's writing-based and you need support with your writing, similarly, we have a couple options. One is that you could work one-on-one, or, as I mentioned before, we have an online writing lab, which we call OWL, and you can submit your work and get feedback within 24 hours. So.
Nice, thank you. Okay, so we're moving on. Kyle wants to know, when should we send in our high school transcripts, and can we do it via email or in another electronic way? Kyle, I will take this one. You should send in your high school transcripts as soon as your high school's office is open and able to send those to us. We do accept those electronically directly from the high school or by U.S. Postal Service. They need to be an official transcript, so it needs to either have that stamp on an envelope that it's coming from your high school, or it needs to come electronically from the high school directly. So go ahead and give your high school's registrar's office a call and make sure if they're open and have those get sent to us as soon as possible. What typically happens is we will allow you to register for your first term of classes, but midterm in fall term, we will place a hold on your account until we have that official transcript. You won't be able to register for any subsequent terms until we get that final high school transcript. So it is an official part of your admission application. It is the final piece, and we want you to take care of that as soon as you're able. Okay, Luca wants to know, Paige, where and when should we take the placement tests?
Great question. All these are awesome questions. So the placement test, probably the easiest place to do it is through the Testing Center's website, which is just testing.uoregon.edu. In the advising prep module, there are links to the website, so you don't have to memorize that. It's perfectly fine. You're getting a lot of information thrown at you. And on the Testing Center's website, it's going to give you a lot of information about what to expect when you take the placements. So that's true for math, as well as French, German, and Spanish. And then there's also the ability to take, I believe, Chinese and Japanese, not the oral portion interview of the placement that's required for those two particular languages, but the written portion, and then you connect with a professor or advisor in the East Asian Literature and Language Department to finalize the placement. So that is probably the best place for any of your placement testing questions is testing.uoregon.edu. Our University Testing Center is fabulous, and there's a lot of great information there.
Yes, for sure. They're awesome. Okay, so Camille has a question. It looks like it's from me. I'm going to ask my team to get to this one. Elise wants to know, am I able to apply to be in the CHC my sophomore year? Paige, is that a question for you, or can either of you handle that?
Unless this has changed very recently, it is possible to certainly apply to transfer into the Clark Honors College, and that is all I'm going to say because that's all I know. But I will say that there is a portion, or there used to be at least on their website, that kind of discusses that process and what that looks like. And if it is something you're interested, I would encourage you to reach out early and get that information as you start your college career, so you don't get kind of too far in before having that option to kind of switch tracks and apply.
Thank you. Okay, Dimitri wants to know, this is great for either of you because I know that you both will be advising first-year students. What are the main topics you will be tackling with your academic advisor in your first meeting?
Do you want to take it away?
Sure, Dimitri, that's a great question. I think it depends a lot on what you want to do while you're here at the U of O. I think if you're a student that's trying to figure out that exact question, that's the best place to start. I'd come prepared thinking about what interests you, whether that's a subject of study, whether that's a career or profession that you might see yourself, or just a broad goal of your sort of envisioned future. An advisor will help you think about how those things land in particular courses or majors of study, and think about how you could explore those interests or even narrow those interests. Oftentimes students come with a lot of ideas. You might also be a student who knows exactly what you want to do, and that's a great time to come prepared with what that is, so that an advisor can think about what's the most efficient, effective, and meaningful way to study that here at the U of O. They often know are great people to help you understand all the available resources and opportunities that exist both in the classroom but outside of the classroom to help you achieve your goals. I think the commonality for your advising session is that you're going to leave with a really solid idea of what courses you'll take for fall term, and confident that you can then register for those classes. But I would come prepared with, too, any question that you have about fall courses and what you might study here at the U of O.
I think it's really valuable for students. A lot of times students, they're nervous about this transition, and it would be easier for us to just tell them what to take instead of asking them what they love. But it would be helpful for students to take some time to kind of jot down those things that they're passionate about, or the things that they want to learn, or the experiences they want to have. Also worth noting is the kind of experience you want to have this fall, since it's so special. Last fall we would have assumed that you wanted to come to have all of your classes in person, and that you were coming here exactly for that, and we were all going to start the same way. But this year students are weighing some decisions, and so correct me if I'm wrong, you'll want to hear if students are looking for in-person versus remote versus online versus some combination of those sorts of experiences that they might be able to have this fall. Is that
true?
For
sure, and I think that's a really good point. That will also help you just clarify what those things mean. What will it mean to take an online course or an in-person class, and help clarify for you whether or not that will work in your sort of best interest and what your plans are. And I'll just emphasize what Cora said. I think that the best thing is to spend some time before your appointment to think just about what not only your questions are and the things that you need to figure out, but just why you're here at the U of O and what you want to study or try to accomplish. I often ask students to think about what they want to do in the future, partly because it gives us a sense of maybe the type of work that they might be interested in, or how they want to spend their time. And we're really good at trying to decipher how that fits to a degree and a course of study. We're also really good, I think, at trying to connect you to those outside resources and opportunities that exist on campus that you most likely don't know about it as a first-year student, and we can help you make those connections as soon as possible. And I will say, just like Paige already, we are quick to let you know if we don't know the answer, and we're also quick to get you connected to somebody on campus that can help you.
Thank you for that. Okay, so Tallulah wants to know, is math a core requirement? If so, how many credits are needed? It sounds like some more information about the distinction between a BA and a BS, Bachelor of Arts versus Bachelor of Science is required. Paige, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And Tallulah, I kept my explanation super broad because it is a really tricky answer, but I'll give a couple of different scenarios. There's not a particular credit requirement for math, nor do all students have to take math. So I'm going to take an example of someone who is pursuing a BS degree, because that does require math. And let's say they are a psychology major, which requires one term of statistics to complete the major. If you need a year of college level math, that's 3 terms, again, or equivalent proficiency. So if you take one term of statistics, that would satisfy one of those 3 terms. It works towards your major, works towards the BS requirement, and then you would take 2 additional math courses, and that could be contemporary math, it could be college algebra, it could be a number of different math classes, or computer information science courses if you'd prefer that to finish your 2 other math courses that are not already kind of embedded within the major in pursuit of the BS degree. In another example, let's say the same student is a BS major and switches to a chemistry major. The chemistry major requires more than a year of math already within that major. And let's say that particular student comes in with AP credit for Math 251, which is calculus. That student will actually already be done with their BS math requirement, because calculus is the equivalent of a year's worth of college level math. And so it's going to be highly individual based on if and what credits you're bringing in, whether you even want to take a BS degree or take a major that requires math in it. And then also kind of what your sort of trajectory is for what you want to complete while you're here. So I know know some students who are doing a BA degree in a field that does not require math, but still want to have a statistical background because maybe a graduate program they're applying to, it feels like it might be an attractive option to have that background knowledge. So again, it all kind of comes down to your individual interests, strengths, goals, and then aligning those with what requirements you're trying to complete at the University of Oregon. And that's, again, where I think advising is well placed to help you kind of bridge the gap between those two pieces of knowledge.
Thank you. I want to actually slot one of my own questions in because I think it's worth talking about ahead of the advising appointments around where ARCs and FIGs and other first-year experiences can help a student who may be exploring or uncertain about a major, or maybe thinking about a particular subject area that they're not quite sure. Like, is there an advantage to taking a FIG or being part of an ARC that keeps them on track and still lets them kind of dabble a little bit in other areas that maybe are less traditional, or maybe outside of being a business major or a biology major or something like that, that they've had their eye on, but maybe they also love philosophy?
Grant?
Paige, you got this.
I got this. Alrighty, let's talk FIGs, ARCs. I love FIGs and ARCs. I think these are such a great opportunity for first year students to engage meaningfully in a curriculum that's sort of like a pre-packaged type of deal. And the reason I think it's really powerful, there's a lot of reasons, but one, you can, let's say you're a business major and you are all in business and you want to do the business ARC, that allows you to take classes towards your major with other students with similar interests. You're going to have meaningful engagement with folks who have similar strengths and ideas about what they want to do. You're going to have increased contact with professors, instructors outside of the classroom opportunities that are available to you. You literally live and take classes with the same folks, which is a really nice way to kind of kick off your college experience. On the sort of other hand, like let's say you are a business major and you're taking some business courses, but you also are a musician and you're deeply interested in learning more about the politics of race and hip hop. There's a FIG for that, and it has no business courses in it, but is a really great way to work on some of your core education requirements while you're also working towards your major. So you can use those experiences, which are sort of a package of classes, to kind of either further an interest that you have that aligns with a major, or explore. In a different example, let's say you're an exploring student and you are completely overwhelmed by the choices, which is very normal and also my own personal experience of college. Sometimes just picking a FIG or an ARC is a great place to start, because it's a really good way to just kind of dig in somewhere and then use that as a litmus test for, I loved these types of classes, I want to continue learning about this topic, or taking classes with this particular professor, or being friends with these particular students that I met through this, or it's, I didn't really love this particular set of classes, I think I'm actually more interested in the natural sciences, and now you know that. So there's a lot of different advantages to taking them, and I'm not even going to dig into the statistics about different like learning outcomes or performance, but I think there are some benefits to suggest that it's a smoother transition for students who have meaningful engagement in first year experiences like FIGs and ARCs.
Thank you. Claire wants to know, how many credits do you need to minor in something? Claire, that is a very complicated question, and I'm going to let Paige answer it.
Yeah, so like everything I've said today, it's just like, here's an answer, but here's 5 other scenarios. Minors vary. So I think the smallest number of credits a minor can be is either 24 or 28 credits. I can't remember off the top of my mind. So the smallest number would be like 24 or 28 credits, which is about half of a major. There are minors that go up to 36. I think a couple have a little bit more than that. But you're looking in that range between like 24 to 36 credits, so between 6 to 8 classes, if my math is correct, and it probably isn't. So just keep that in mind as you're looking. Keep that in mind as you're looking at minors. Is they're not a huge number of courses, and it's pretty easy to kind of fit those into the different parts of your degree, for sure. And that's again a great thing to kind of chat with your advisor about how you can fit those opportunities into the other interests and things that you're pursuing with your programs.
Would you say, I've heard this from academic advisors, and I don't know how often it's true for you, but often they are sitting with a student who's talking about classes, and there's this moment of epiphany where either for the student or the advisor that a student might be just one more course away from having a minor. Do you find that it happens quite a bit, and that it helps a student find those opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that really speaks to this idea of like coherence within your academic curriculum. I think sometimes students feel like they have so many interests, and they sometimes will just start taking classes in different areas, and there's trends that you and your advisor might realize as you're sitting together looking at the guide to your degree requirements, that like, you know what, you've taken a lot of philosophy classes for your arts and letters requirement. If you took 2 more, you then have a minor, and not that you have to have a minor to explore philosophy as a subject area, but sometimes it's just nice to know that there's actually maybe a little bit more coherence and patterns within the types of classes you're opting to take than you might see on face value. And I always say minors are great. They're not like a make or break thing. You don't have to do them, but if you have a true interest in something outside of your major and you're taking those classes anyway, you might as well, because there's a lot of great options. And a lot of the minors we offer are not offered as majors. So it's a really great opportunity also to explore something that you may have otherwise wanted to major in, but isn't necessarily an option for that. So yeah, minors are a great option, and advisors can certainly help you kind of explore those. I think we offer more minors than we do majors, actually.
Yeah, we do. Grant, for you, I'm going to, again, because I have the microphone, I'm going to steal all the time. Grant, one of the things that, in my experience, when family members in particular hear about the Tackling series, their ears perk up and they think of their students and all the benefits that they could draw from that. Can you provide some advice on when a student when you would say that's a good option for a student, and how do they connect with those? Can you provide a little bit more detail on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there's a lot of ways to access the same type of support. Typically, for our classes, what we're trying to do is offer an opportunity for you to sort of evaluate where you are and build skills that will benefit you in the classroom. I think the best way to take advantage of those is probably one of 2 scenarios. One, that you're a student coming in for this year and maybe you just have some concerns because you know yourself better than anybody. And I look back at my high school to college transition, and I knew already that I spent very little time outside of the classroom and just sort of got by on what I thought were smarts, which turns out was like the opposite of smarts, which was that I was approaching it all the wrong way. And so my transition on my own was just, whether I knew it at the time or not, was actually building skills and strategies just to be a good student, somebody that paid attention while I was in a lecture and took note of what was important and what was not, and figuring out how to filter those things and how to write notes that I could use later to help me study for a test or prepare for an assignment, or more than anything, just understand the concepts that were being covered in that course that I could then apply later on in life. But the classes are credit bearing, and what they do require is like in-course time and outside of class assignments. They're not particularly challenging, but what they do require for a student is engagement and interest on becoming a better student. They'll ask you, for example, in a time management class, one pretty classic and typical activity is just auditing your time and thinking about how are you using it in relationship to your goals and the things that you say you value. The other scenario is just, I think some students are constantly trying to get better at particular things. And if you know that, for example, you're going to be a humanities major, and probably for the first time you're going to be assigned actually books on your course reading list, and you want to think about how to read those maybe more efficiently, how to take notes more effectively, and just manage your time in a way that you feel like you're not swamped. A class like the Tackling Text, for example, would be really helpful. But I would just say that's one entry, but it's a pretty significant, I think, commitment that you should be interested in signing up for. If by chance, and this happens for pretty much every student, is you might find that you're just challenging with something new that maybe you thought you were good at, the TAC is just a good place to start no matter what. You don't have to take a class. You can stop by and talk to somebody, and we can help you figure out the next step.
Thank you. Paige, and I want to ask one more and get back to some student questions with our time left. One of the questions I hear all of the time from students and their family members is about the credit load in that first term. And I think, you know, there's the financial aid definition of full-time, and then there's the U of O recommendation for averaging out time. And then of course there's the students who may not be confident in their skill set to adapt to the difficulty of college and the pace of the quarter system. Some who want to know about whether a job fits in, how many credits they should take, things like that. When you hear that question in the first advising appointment, how do you approach that with a student, and what's your best advice, not knowing anything about, you know, the group of students right now who might be asking that question?
Yeah, that's, I love that question because I think it is, like everything else, varies from student to student, and that I think is also a really good example of the types of conversations you can expect to have with your academic advisor. In that first session, without fail, I and many of my colleagues will ask a student, how many credits do you feel comfortable taking, knowing that most students come from a semester institution in high school, so 10-week terms are fast. I've only ever attended or advised at previous institutions that were semesters, and there's a lot of perks to having like 10-week terms, and also the pace is a bit quicker for some students, and I think there can be some trepidation around taking on, you know, 4 courses. That said, most students find that load manageable. There are going to be exceptions to that. If you are working a significant number of hours outside of your studies, we may want to talk about decreasing that load. Or there's maybe a way to arrange your classes so that you're taking 3 academically based courses for 12 credits that's full time, and then maybe supplementing with some courses in art or music or PE or dance or something that doesn't necessarily require you to be writing essays or taking exams every week, but still kind of help inch you towards that pace of about 15 credits a term. And there's no universal answer. Everyone is going to feel a little bit differently about it. So my answer to that is that your advisor is probably going to ask you a lot of questions about what's going to feel right for you. But also know that most students, even if they're nervous to take a full course load, and by full I mean that pace towards graduation of about 15 credits or 4 courses that term, a lot of students are scared about it and then find that it's actually really manageable to carry that load, and there's a lot of support for it as well.
Thank you for that. Okay, so last question, and this is, again, probably you're going to get to the same answer, it depends, but I want to make sure that this one gets said out loud, and I'm sorry if I say your name incorrectly. Miera wants to know, how would a schedule of someone who is interested in double majoring compare to a traditional schedule?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I feel like a total broken record today because I'm like, it depends, but it really does depend. So let's take an example of a student who wants to pursue like a science major, which is going to have a more sequential curriculum, and then potentially wants to add on a major that is like about 48 credits and isn't as built around prereqs and sequencing. You might start with your science kind of major courses your first term and really kind of get into the flow of that sequence. And then for some of your supplemental courses, the core education, things like that, you start adding those in slowly to a pace where it feels right. It's going to be really different depending on what those 2 different majors look like. And there's going to be some majors that go together really easily and are very easily accomplished as a double major. And then there's going to be other tracks where you will need to be very intentional about each term checking in with an advisor to balance the workload between like a business and a chemistry major, for example, which both have a larger number of credits and a lot of requirements and not a ton of overlap.
Thank you so much. That is all the time that we have for this session. For those of you who are watching, thank you so much for your time and your excellent questions. Again, for you students, be sure to log on to community.uoregon.edu to submit your reflection and stay on track for your introduction requirements. But also the community.uoregon.edu is this site is the place where you want to go to complete that advising module and find the links to the tests, the placement exams that we hope that you will take before your advising appointment. Other ways that you can stay on track to continue through our introduction programming, make sure that you upload your selfie for your UOID. We'll be mailing those to students here in a few weeks, and we want to make sure that we get your ID card to you so that you can be a card-carrying duck like the rest of us. We want to make sure that you also check your @uoregon.edu email address every single day. Lots of information will be coming your way, including those invitations to set up your advising appointment. Information about room selection is also coming up, so make sure you keep an eye out for that. Room selection is beginning quite soon, and so you want to stay on track for that as well. Many of you have a financial aid checklist to complete. Please make sure that you're paying attention to that. And of course, set your reminders to make sure that you have your final high school transcript sent to the U of O, and submit your immunization records to the U of O's Health Center. Those keep you on track not only for fall term but beyond, so make sure that you're getting those done. For links to find out more or to complete these steps, I would encourage you to visit our website at orientation.uoregon.edu. Clicking on the Next Steps part of our website will lead you to many of these sites to make sure that you complete. For any other questions or questions about this, you can always email us at orientation@uoregon.edu, or you can text us at 541-346-1159. If you'd like to learn more about academic advising on campus and the structure that we have, we released an episode of Flock Talk this morning that covers that in a lot of detail. So I'd encourage you to download that from your favorite podcast platform, or you can listen at flocktalk.uoregon.edu. Again, thank you so much for your time with us this morning. And to you, Grant and Paige, thank you for helping our new ducks get ready for fall.
Thank you, Cora.